Well, the Pitt basketball roster keeps coming more and more into focus. More transfers keep getting added. One committed over the weekend, another one committed yesterday. That is now bringing the total to 4 transfers who have committed to play for the University of Pittsburgh basketball Panthers in the fall. And hey, by golly, they've got enough to put 5 guys on the court with 2 on the bench. So they're of scholarship players at least. Who knows how many other walk-ons they might have waiting in the wings to take over. But no, this roster is starting to come together. We're getting a better, a clearer and clearer picture of what Jeff Capel wants this team to be and how he wants them to look and how he wants them to play. I think it's a different kind of style from last season, maybe something closer to what they were a couple years ago, and maybe something closer to what they were a couple decades ago. That might be the goal here. It certainly has looked that way as they've gone through their initial transfer portal efforts, and when we see the guys that they are getting, it's looking that way more and more. So who's coming? Who's joining the roster? Who just committed over the last few days? And what does this all look like for Pitt basketball in 2025-26? Let's talk about it here on the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Tuesday. It's the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. I've told you this week that I'm going to be heading out of town, taking a little family trip. We're actually leaving today. By the time you read this, I might be in the air or I might be out west. Who knows? But we're taking a nice trip. Looking forward to it. Kind of planned it for after spring break. Planned it back, or after spring camp, I should say. It's the kids' spring break at school. And I've been planning this trip for quite some time, so excited to get out there. Obviously, we're going to be away. I'm sure there's going to be transfer portal news that comes out. So I've said that, not all of our morning pits coming up are going to be, entirely reflective of the news that has come out, but we'll still have some content for you, certainly through this week. We'll get back in Pittsburgh next Tuesday, so I don't think we'll have a Morning Pit on Monday or Tuesday unless I decide to tape one from a hotel room somewhere, but we'll certainly be back for a Morning Pit on Wednesday. But we're going to have the one every day this week. So yesterday we talked about what we learned about Pitt's offense in spring camp. Tomorrow we're going to talk about what we learned in Pitt's defense in spring camp. We've got something fun planned for later in the week that I think you're going to enjoy here on the Morning Pit. We got some good stuff. So, I might be out of town. I'm still going to be on the message boards. I can't stay away from that. Come on. We'll have a ton of content at Panther-Lair.com recapping spring camp, looking at some big recruiting topics, looking at the transfers, the guys coming in, the guys going out, certainly keeping up on everything with the basketball team. Lots of content at Panther-Lair.com. And we'll have that daily video content for you right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like and subscribe. Like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you don't miss any of it. So another transfer came in yesterday. Pitt landed a transfer from DeMarco Minor, a guard from Oregon State. He's a 4th-year player. He's played a ton over the last 3 years. Spent his first 2 years at SIU Edwardsville in the Ohio Valley Conference, and then played last year at Oregon State. Out of those 3 years, he has played in 99 games and started 98 of them. So you're looking at an experienced point guard who has excelled in the at being a point guard. On his career, he's only averaging 3.6 assists per game, but this past season at Oregon State, I think, is the kind of stat line that you're hoping to get out of him. Basically 10, 5, and 5. He averaged 9.8 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, and 5.1 assists, plus 1.5 steals. Doing better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, only averaging 2.2 turnovers per game last season. Playing at the high level. I'm still going to consider, I know Oregon State played it in the WCC, so I don't know if we're calling that high major or not, but Oregon State still feels like a high major school to me. And, he had his best season playing there. The best all-around season. He scored more when he was at Edwardsville, 14 points per game as a freshman, 15.5 points per game as a sophomore. Last year, he became more of a distributor. He actually, his second year at Edwardsville, he averaged 15.5 points per game and 8.5 rebounds per game. Pretty impressive stat line. Shows a little bit of what he can do. Not a huge three-point shooter, not a great three-point shooter, under 30% for his career. But again, I think you're looking at DeMarco Minor as being a guard who comes in to be the point guard, to be the distributor, and to be something of a facilitator, more than a guy you're counting on to put up 15 points every night. You're looking at him to be the guy who runs the offense. He's a physical guard. the thing we keep hearing, our guy Matt Steinbrink reported it when Pitt's interest in DeMarco Minor first became apparent, and when he became apparent, the Pitt had a good chance of landing him. Matt Steinbrink, our great basketball analyst at Panther-Lair.com, reported that the Pitt staff sees DeMarco Minor as sort of a throwback to the old Pitt guards, the original Pitt guards back in the early 2000s, that style of guy. I don't know if you want to look for an exact comparison to Brandon Knight or Levance Fields or whoever else you want to talk about, but that sort of style, physical guard, facilitating guard, solid defensive guard, probably an upgrade over what they had at the point guard position last year defensively. And so you put DeMarco Minor on this roster with some of the other things we've seen them do, like adding Deshaun Jackson as a center, which could either work in rotation with Cam Corrin or bump Corrin out to play some minutes at the 4, which is something to consider. The Australian kid, Roman Siulepa, we'll get that down by the time he comes here if he ends up going to Pitt. Another big, rugged body at the 4. They're building this team, or they seem to be attempting to build this team in the mold of some of those old Pitt teams. Drag you down to the muck, play dirty, not dirty as in cheap or illegal, but get dirty, play tough, be physical, and, maybe not try to score 88 points every game, which I assume was the goal over the last couple of seasons, but play a little bit of a grimier kind of game, because that's the kind of players that they seem like they're bringing in, trying to beef up the front court, get more physical, get more size, and then bring in this guard, a guard like DeMarco Minor, who is, again, more of a physical type of player. Now, of course, he wasn't the only transfer who's committed in the last few days. They also got a transfer over the weekend, Barry Dunning Jr., a wing coming in from South Alabama. A guy who could probably play the 3 or the 4, the way that Pitt has used the 3 and the 4 in previous years, where the 3 and the 4 have been sort of interchangeable. A guy like Zach Austin could play the 3 or the 4. Amsal Delilich could have played the 3 or the 4. I mean, even Jorge Diaz-Graham could have been a 3 or a 4, even though he's a different body type than those guys that we're talking about. But Dunning Jr. seems to fit in like that he could have been a 3 or a 4 with the way Pitt has played in previous years, but with the way they seem like they're trying to play this year, with the roster they're trying to build this year, at least from what it looks like on the outside, he would probably be a bit of a small 4. And I think there will be times where Pitt might want to go with a smaller lineup, trying to get the matchups and play a bit of a small ball type of lineup, in which case Barry Dunning Jr. could play at the 4. But for the most part, he's probably going to be a wing, probably going to be that guy playing the 3. And I think he's an intriguing player in that spot. He can shoot a little bit. I think his career 3-point percentage is kind of right around where Zach Austin's was prior to this past season, when Austin shot 38%. And so maybe Dunning Jr. can have that kind of bump up like Austin did. But he's really athletic, decent rebounder, but he can create. And this is a big part of it. He can come off screens and drive and potentially finish, which wasn't really something Zach Austin was going to do. You weren't really going to get him involved in the offense in that way. And so if we look at Dunning Jr. as a Zach Austin replacement, first of all, I don't know if he's going to bring that same defense, the sort of explosive defense that Zach Austin had, but he's got a little bit more in terms of scoring ability. I think he'll be a better overall scorer. And certainly if he could raise that 3-point shooting percentage up to 35 or above, that would be even better. But I think he's going to be a better overall scorer than Austin was. And so if he steps into that role, I think it could be a potential upgrade. I don't know if he's going to provide all of the high-flying, exciting Sports Center highlight plays that Zach Austin did, but I think he'll be able to score for this team and, maybe have a chance to be the leading scorer. Or no worse than like the top 3 by the end of the season. I think that's probably the role they envision for him. So Dunning Jr. and DeMarco Minor, joining the team now as transfers. They follow the 2 Iowa State transfers, Deshaun Jackson, the center, and Noyes Indrusitis, the sophomore wing who's coming in. And those 4 guys will join Brandon Cummings, Amni Najai, and Cam Corrin, the 3 remaining scholarship players from last year's roster. So what does this look like? What does the starting 5 with these guys look like? What does a roster with these guys look like? I think Miner's coming in to be the starting point guard. So I think we can assume that. And I think Deshaun Jackson's coming in to be the starting center. So I think we can assume that. Dunning Jr., I guess you would probably say is the three. So you're looking for your starting two and your starting four. I think are the big question marks. I still think there's a decent chance Brandon Cummings ends up in the starting lineup here as the off-ball guard. I'm not basing that on, I don't have like super secret sources telling me that. That's just sort of my thought, is that they might try to find another shooter. I'm sure they want to find another shooter. I'm sure they're pursuing other shooters. There's another guy that we've talked about that they're interested in, Nick Dorn from Elon, a guy who's a career where's his number 36% three-point shooter. Could be the option who steps in to start there at the 2, and maybe he starts ahead of Brandon Cummings, and Cummings could work off the bench for a second year. But there's part of me that thinks that Brandon Cummings is going to be in the starting line. I don't know. I mean, it might depend more on who they bring in and what role those guys are recruited for and what they're able to do and what their skill sets are. Either way, Brandon Cummings will be in the rotation. So if they land... I said Nick Dorn. Am I right about that first name? Why am I? Yeah, I am. I thought I was right. I don't know why I felt like I might not be. I think the fact that they got a guy named Barry is throwing me off. It's disorienting. I mean, Deshaun, Noyes, DeMarco, I can handle these names. Omni, I can handle these names. But Barry's throwing me off, and it's got me thinking, so I'm trying to think about this Nick Dorn that they're recruiting from Elon, this transfer that they had in for a visit over the weekend. I keep getting mixed up. It took me the longest time to convince myself his first name wasn't Roger, right? So I got past that, but now Frank keeps jumping in there. Frank Dorn. But he's not Frank Dorn. It's Nick Dorn. So maybe if they land him, maybe he could be in the starting lineup as the off-ball guard, and Cummings could come off the bench either at the 1 or the 2, or play in a 3-guard lineup with Miner and Dorn if they do land Dorn. I think there's some different options there, but I don't know. Brandon Cummings is the guy who stood with you, right? Brandon Cummings is the guy who stayed loyal, the guy who didn't leave, and that doesn't necessarily need to totally determine your decisions on the starting lineup. It doesn't mean, Brandon Cummings, he was loyal, we need to start him, but he's got to have a big role. I mean, I think it's important for Pitt overall for Brandon Cummings to have a big role and for him to be heavily involved with this team in this coming season. And if it's not as a starter, then it's as a top reserve. The sixth man basically is what he needs to be, the sixth man, and no worse than the seventh man, which is interesting because you're talking about having Noyes Indrusitis. You're talking about potentially having Cam Corrin coming off the bench, particularly if they get the Australian guy, Roman Siulepa. You're looking at a number of interesting bench options there, Cummings, Indrusitis, and potentially Corrin, depending on who they get here. But I still think Cummings has to be right near the top of that bench rotation because, first of all, I think he's a really good player. I think he can shoot. I think he could be a guy who shoots over 35% from 3. I think he can provide that for you. I think he's a talented player. I think he's got a lot of energy, and I think he's a scorer. I think, in this team, the way they're building it, and they want to build it to be tough and physical and defensive, you're still going to need points. And Brandon Cummings, I think, is one of those guys who can give you points. So I think you need to get him out there on the court. In what role? I don't know. Again, that might depend on who else they get, but I think you need to have him out there on the court playing and contributing. So 7 guys, a couple of guards, straight guards, DeMarco Miner and Brandon Cummings, a couple of wing guys, and Noyes Indrusitis and Barry Dunning Jr., Amdi Najai kind of in that mix as well. And then the 2 centers, big guys, Cam Corrin and Deshaun Jackson. Still need more shooting. Still need, probably another guard or 2 or 3 if you could get them. And then, maybe you still need some beef up front, some more guys to line up front. If this is the way they're going, if they're going for the beefy lineup, this is, then that's what they need to add. It's funny, too, with these guys that they've landed here, Deshaun Jackson, Barry Dunning Jr., and DeMarco Miner. I think among the 3 of them, they've been at 8 colleges, all prior to coming to Pitt. Like with Pitt, it would bump the number up to 9, 10, 11 colleges among the 3 of them. Like Miner is coming to Pitt. Like I said, he played at SIU Edwardsville for 2 years and then Oregon State. Dunning Jr. was at Arkansas, and then UAB, and then South Alabama. That's 5 schools. Deshaun Jackson, there it is, was at Washington State, and then Charlotte, and then Iowa State. He actually spent 2 years at Washington State, and Minor spent 2 years at SIU Edwardsville. So it's not like these guys are bouncing year to year, but this is how it is. You'll get guys that collect. They might be on their 4th school now, which will be the case for Dunning Jr. and Deshaun Jackson. That they're going to be on their 4th school when they get to Pitt. For Minor, it's going to be his 3rd school. It's just how it goes. This is and we saw it yesterday with the football transfer portal, or a couple of Pitt football players went in. Jake Renda, who's been here for 3 or 4 years, but decided to move on and find a better opportunity. But also Andy Jean, a wide receiver from Florida, who transferred in like December. He just got here in January, and on April 14th, he announced that he's going into the transfer portal. Like, came in, went through spring camp, said, nope, it's not for me. I'm out of here. 1 semester at the University of Pittsburgh. I wonder if those transfers will even credit, or if those credits will even transfer, I should say. I mean, just in and out. Nope, that's not the right spot. You go through training camp in August, you kind of have to stick it out then, because what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to transfer anywhere and play anyway. So I guess you'll get at least the fall semester at another school. And then we'll see if next spring brings Andy Jean to another school. And I got no problem with it. I mean, do whatever you want. You got to make the best decision for you. If you felt like this wasn't the best place, either you weren't comfortable in Pittsburgh, or weren't comfortable at the University of Pittsburgh, or just didn't feel like it was going to work out for you football-wise, yeah, go find a better opportunity, whatever you need to do. But I mean, geez, you're only here for a few months, but that's how it is, and you just don't get any connections. You know what I mean? Like, you just these guys come in and out, and they're gone, and it's even that's an extreme example. You don't have a lot of these guys who are doing that. You have some. Remember, Anthony Johnson last year transferred to Pitt after spending the spring semester at Illinois, so it's not entirely unheard of. It does happen every year. But it's not the majority of guys, but you do still have a lot of 1-year rentals. I mean, you look at Pitt this year, look at the defensive end position, right? Last year they had Nate Matlack, was a 1-year rental. Now, David Ojebwe and Chief Borders ended up only being 1-year rentals too. Just like Damian Dunn and Nelly Cummings and Greg Elliott. I mean, there have been plenty of 1-year rentals as well, but you knew those guys were going to be 1-year rentals. Like a Nate Matlack, you knew was a 1-year rental. This year, Blaine Spires and Joey Zielinski, are 1-year rentals. Some of those offensive linemen as well. And I think, Jackson, Dunning Jr., Minor, these guys are probably going to be out of eligibility after this year too. And so it's a 1-year rental going in. Maybe it's some of these underclassmen who still have eligibility. You go to one school for a year, then go to another for a year, then go to another for a year. I mean, like I say, I hope all the credits transfer. I hope all the credits transfer. But that's neither here nor there. That's another conversation for another day. We can have that some other time. But that's the latest on the Pitt basketball roster after adding 2 more transfers. Like I say, they'll probably get some more transfers here over the next few days, over the next week. We won't. We probably won't get a chance to talk about it here on the Morning Pitt until next Wednesday, but we'll have lots of coverage, of course, at Panther-Lair.com. Panther-Lair.com. It's a place to go for all the Pitt sports news you can possibly handle. Panther-Lair.com and the message boards, where you've got the best Pitt conversation you're going to find. It's the best online community of Pitt sports fans, in my opinion, and I hope you can stop by, hang out, and join in those conversations. Have a good time. We've got great Pitt fans there. So thanks for watching today. I appreciate it. We'll have more Pitt content for you tomorrow right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.